Good to see you again for another Tuesday talk, Thomas. I sincerely appreciate that we are now rolling almost into be able to celebrate our 1 year anniversary in a few months. So that is super exciting.
That is exciting indeed.
It's super exciting, and we're actually seeing a new faces again this time. So I'm very pleased. But Thomas, if you could introduce yourself to the audience for the new folks here, so. It would be
Absolutely.
fantastic. Yeah.
My name is Thomas. I grew up in Denmark, raised as an American, live in Los Angeles, where I lead a consulting firm focused on European companies coming into the US, help them with market engagement. We really do three things: help them with strategy, execution of strategy, and matchmaking to money making. While we have a strong focus on environmental sustainability and solutions and know-how in that arena, we do have a range of clients that we help. And we do it equally well in Danish and German and English and a few other languages.
That's fantastic. And yes, my name is Charlotte Nytoft, and I basically do the same, just based in Denmark currently. I have lived and worked 10 years in the United States, and in total I've actually worked since 2007 as a consultant helping Danish businesses establish their presence on the US market. And while your focus is sort of energy and environment technologies, I'm sort of more generalist, and I help businesses establish their US entity and help them actually get the foothold on the US ground to actually scale their business. And we have been making our Tuesday talk and talking about the topics that we have in our mutual businesses experience that can sometimes be a headache for Danish businesses entering the US market. So we have a schedule of things that we would like to share with you, and today we are talking. Last time we talked about trade shows and how to actually get the most out of your trade show participation, and the interest was so big that we thought we would segue on this subject and actually talk about sort of more the educational sales, which is sort of you can say a separate part, partially of the trade show participation and the conference participation, but also actually as the selling and establishing relationships on the US market. But Thomas, when I say educational sales, what do you actually think when I say that?
Well, I think learning by teaching, but engaging with people on the trade show in a smaller forum, first of all, but also engaging with exactly the people that you want to talk to. And you have the opportunity to talk about the things that are important to you and why they're important to you, giving valuable information to people without bragging and without being in a position where you're actually selling them on your product, but you're establishing yourself as someone with expertise in your field, which is very important.
Yeah, and also another part of the educational selling, because a lot of the companies coming from Denmark and from Europe in general has some technologies that are, you can say, superior to the available technologies on the US market, and therefore you may be faced with sort of what I call the blessing and the curse of being the first mover, because you need to sort of build awareness about a new way of doing things, a new way of solving problems, and you need to actually create that whole awareness and education of basically all the stakeholders in the market, from the lawmakers to the industry associations, to the ones setting the industry standards, both in regulated and non-regulated industries. So if you are the first mover on the market with a new technology, you have quite a bit of a hike in front of you, making that, and I know Danes don't like to take that worth in their mouth, but basically you need to do some lobbyism on various levels. Exactly. So you really need to be focused on that and create a strategy for how you actually would want to go about educating the market about this new way of solving a problem that might even not be recognized at the time where you're introducing your technology. And actually also, because you talked just about the sort of the conference, I think we will dive a little bit into the various areas in which that you can excel in doing educational sales. But also one of the overlooked items for educational sales is actually the lunch and learn.
Exactly right.
And that is, there's actually somebody who have trademarked the sentence lunch and learn, so you can't really use it, but we all know what it is, or at least you and I know what it is. But if I say lunch and learn, what do you think about when I say that?
Well, it's amazing how many people you can get in a room if you offer them a free lunch and tell them that you're going to help them meet some of their educational requirements. So I'm a lawyer licensed in California, and we have this thing called CLE, continuing legal education. There's some mandatory requirements that say, well, listen, every 3 years you have to report your CLEs, your continuing legal education. You have a certain amount of hours, and that's the case in many industries. And even in the industries where it's not a requirement, it's something that people who are certainly on the technical side, say, for instance, the people that we work with in the water and energy industries, like to stay abreast of new developments in their industry. And if you have a program that's been approved by the industry association, you can go to a company, you can say, well, here, we'd like to bring you our lunch and learn, or by another name that's not trademarked. And you can come in and you can meet people, talk to them about what you're doing, talk to them about how it affects their industry, how it could affect their company specifically, and how on an individual level it could benefit them in their job. I mean, and it's the range of opportunities for where you could do lunch and learns is, I mean, I mentioned lawyers and engineers, but one of the things that comes up a lot when we're talking about the Scandinavian or the Nordic countries and the US, I'm in Los Angeles. This is a very car-centric city. If you want to try to tell people that bikes are the new best thing, you have to explain to them how that works and how the Nordic countries got to this place. But in terms of manufacturing, in terms of water and energy and a lot of other areas, you have to make the connection between where your ideal clients are now and where you are, and explain to them how your solution can help them and their company get to the place that they want to be.
Exactly. And the amazing part is that obviously you need to have your presentation and your whatever you want to convey and the explanation about the new technology, obviously cleaned from any sort of hard selling, but what it is, educating the market on new ways of doing things. But that is exactly also what the majority of European companies would want. Basically, and you probably have heard that many times as well, I've often been asked, can't we just talk with the technical folks at the companies we want to sell our products to, because we want to explain them how this works and how we can do and solve this problem better than we have done in the past. So just we can talk with the technical people, because from the base from the core of at least the Danish business people, the hardcore selling isn't our forte. We are explainers. We are educators. We want to tell how things work. We are super good engineers and these types of folks. So we're not hardcore sellers from the get-go. So actually the educational sales falls really into on our plate, because that is what we like to do anyway. So we might as well.
It plays right into our strengths as well. Exactly. as critical thinkers. But listen, Charlotte, I noticed Elia has raised her hand.
Yeah. What does Elia say? Let me see. What is the yeah. Do you have a question, Elia?
No, actually, I just wanted to comment your claim about the presentation about the education. Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
Well, I'm Alla Christensen, and I'm presenting a company, Pressolid. And I just have to say that I'm absolutely agree with you saying that it's a very nice way to get people in the room by offering the education. we have been doing it for a couple of years, and I have to say that it has given us good results in getting people to know our products and educating people in getting out out to the fields. The only thing that I would also like to add, that it's very time consuming, and you have to do it you have to do it continuously. Like, it means that if you offer a course, then you have to offer it all the time, so people know that, well, once a month, first Monday in the month, we are having this course. But it also can give you some approaches at LinkedIn. That's a nice way to just to create a post, say, hey, hello, we're offering this kind of education. In our case, it would be technology of taking care of disabled patients, which is of course where there is a lot of things that we can share from our technology in Denmark. So I can absolutely agree with you saying that it's a good way of connecting, making good connections, and also bringing your products to the market.
Well, thank you, Elja.
Thank you. Yeah.
Can I ask you a quick question? Because one of the things that Charlotte and I speak about a lot of the times is thankfully, there's at least one positive thing that's come out of this global pandemic, is that a lot of things like educational sales, for instance, we feel certainly have become easier, because you're able to do like a Zoom or a Teams but more sort of a virtual training. Do you find that to be true as well?
Well, yes, I absolutely agree on that as well. Of course, it demands, it requires that your presentation is actually interesting to watch. And as you also mentioned, Charlotte, it doesn't need to be very sales, kind of like sales related. You just need to talk about your products and tell people how it solve the issue or a certain problem, whatever it is. But yes, absolutely. I think it's very easy to do, but you have to be aware of the of your presentation. It should be like eye-catching.
Yeah, and I guess the real trick is basically also to have your presentation approved by the board of the industry association. The board, there's 90,000 industry and trade associations in the United States, and basically majority of their work is basically to keep track of the certification and the licensing of the business people, the operators within their field of industry. So the real trick is to actually get your presentation approved by the board that are managing the continued education credits for your presentation, actually to qualify as continued education for these people that you want to talk to, so they can actually submit their hourly their hours that they have participated in your presentation, and submit that to the board, so they can actually get that on their certificate of continued education. So that is basically where you can say the real win is, that you can actually have your presentation, not just a soft sales presentation, but actually a hardcore educational presentation. That is really the win for the company. But like you say, it's a, like anything in the United States, it's sort of a long-term commitment, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. So it's something that you need to dedicate yourself to do, and do continuously, to be actually perceived as the leading expert in your field and in your industry. So yeah, absolutely, long-term commitment.
And Elja brings up an interesting point, though, because from what she's saying, it sounds like Presselied does other things that I was unaware of. And if you enter the market with a portion of your products and services, connecting with other trade organizations is also an opportunity to get an early entry point into speaking to people who are decision makers in a slightly different industry. And one of the things, because the United States is so big and because the market is so big, one of the things that we've talked about is you may start your approach to the market, first of all, in a region or a state or a portion of a state, but you may then, and you may be just approaching a sliver of your industry, that your industry focus in Europe or in the Nordic countries. And you may then later expand even within your same territory to a completely different segment.
Exactly. So and one thing I want to, because now we talked a little bit about the sort of the launch and learn, and obviously that is a one way of educating the market about your products, but also just going a little bit back to what we talked about last time, the conferences and the trade shows. So the conference program is really a place where you really can get a feel for the market, get a feel for sort of the level of presentations that is required to do continuing education credits. And sometimes you really get surprised about, oh, wow, our standard presentation really qualifies, is really up to par with what is presented there at the conference program. So I really encourage every one of you that have sort of technical products or is in that particular field to actually really be curious about the continued education and the conference program. And also, you had brought up a good point yesterday, Thomas, about the timing of your arrival for the conference program. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh yes, arrive early and stay late. I've done this. I've done this myself, where I've shown up 10-15 minutes before presentation started, and the people who are on the panel were already setting up, and I'm the first person in the hall or in the room, and have an opportunity to just speak to the people who are going to be presenting just for a few minutes. They're like, oh, nice to meet you. What are you here for? What's your interest? And on occasion, I've had like a specific question that I wanted answered, and I was able to bring that up. And from a sales perspective, it was really excellent, because at the panel presentation, they said, oh, we spoke to Thomas Reeves earlier, and he brought up this question, which was really interesting. And as a result, other people who were in the audience came up to me and said, well, that's really interesting. Well, tell me more about this.
Yeah.
One of the things that Elia does well, by the way, is, and we've spoken about this before, is if you go and you attend an educational content anywhere, is raise your hand and ask a question. And it's like, you're not selling, you're not trying to convince anyone that your product or your service is better, but you raise your hand and you ask a question, and you just show everyone who's there that you have a different perspective and you have a different take on anything. And I'm also saying this because I noticed, Elia, you had raised your hand again. Did you have another comment?
Mm-hmm. Let's see. There, we got it. Unmute. Hold on. There we go.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. Well, I just had one final comment to the educational and the online training. So we have to remember that achieving a great coverage in the markets, it's also the way to do it through the online presentations. But let's say we are, like in our case, we are talking to an architectural bureau who has offices through the entire United States. So it means by collecting or gathering this group of people, you actually can reach out to so many different regions. So again, just using the advantages that the online training give us, we have to, remember, invite people from all the offices. Ask your customer, do you have somebody else in somewhere else in Chicago, maybe in Miami or in California? Like, let's get them together. And send lunch. Just send lunch to the office. You don't need to be there. We did it sometimes where have people in different location connected to our presentation, and we just make sure that they receive some lunch from, I think it was Panera Bread or something like this. So it's very easy and very convenient.
That's an excellent point and a great suggestion, by the way.
Yeah, obviously a lunch and learn, you as a company, obviously, I think we forgot to say that at the beginning, you obviously is expected to bring the lunch and to actually pay
Absolutely.
for the lunch for the people that are attending. So yeah, obviously, but that is a whole, we said it's a whole industry in the United States. So it's super easy. Everything is can be booked online, and you can super easily get lunch from all kinds of places, and even the coordinator at the company where you're doing the lunch and learn would gladly be helpful to actually recommend the local favorite sandwich shop for that part of the your treat for the staff. So absolutely, it's super relevant to obviously need to bring the lunch, even though you're not there yourself. So that is an excellent point, Alja. So yeah, so so there is a number of ways that you can engage with the audience, and again, I think the core of the message here is that there are so many opportunities for you as a European company to stand out as a industry expert and position yourself as an industry expert in your particular field. But you really should not underestimate the fact that you also need to do so, especially if you are bringing new and novel technologies to the market. And now you have worked quite a bit with the water sector, Thomas. So give us a few ideas on how you have talked to the companies that you work with on how they should position themselves as experts in the field.
Well, it's very much about education and engagement, and speaking to the engineers is essential, because obviously the senior management are the ones who are ultimately responsible for making the decisions about which way to go forward, but they take the recommendations from the engineers and outside consultants very seriously. So the information that trickles up to senior management comes from a variety of sources. And the best way to sort of cover all your bases is exactly through educational sales, where you're engaging through industry associations, either through conferences, through the virtual presentations, in person to the extent possible these days, but covering multiple points of entry at the same time. Because if you're speaking to one engineer who does one thing in one department, well, his voice may not be the ultimate one that's listened to, but engaging in this type of education from several different fronts, industry associations, going to conferences, but really this educational part where it's saying, a lot of times what I hear is, well, we're not Denmark. No, clearly that's not the case, for a whole slew of different reasons. Not for any bad reasons, but let's allow us to explain to you, what are some of the qualitative differences, and in which ways you could take advantage of some of the things that we've done and some of the things that we've learned.
Exactly. And also another thing at the conferences, what you should not underestimate at any session at a technical conference program, there will be someone from the industry association responsible for that part of the program and of the educational part. They will be there at any event. So if that is the route to go, participating in the conference, engaging at the conference, asking these questions, as you said, Thomas, and displaying your level of expertise and know-how within the specific field. Make sure to engage with the person within the industry association attending this particular breakout session. Talk with him or her about how you can actually contribute to the industry association by being able to speak at the next conference, and in the meanwhile engage with them about your presentation, about your knowledge, about the way you see things, and about the way Europeans are solving this or that particular challenge. Because what we need to understand is everybody sitting there in the room is sitting there with a genuine interest in learning something new. That is sort of the whole basis of continuing education. they are basically eager to learn something new. Obviously, one point because they need to collect their continuing education credit, but also obviously they have selected this particular topic in the conference program that is of their specific interest. So therefore, you have people, you have all ears is available there at this particular conference program. So and again, like Alia just said, it requires some continuity, and it obviously requires planning. So when you are going to a conference, make sure that you are not just focusing your energy on sort of the expo floor and who is actually exhibiting, but actually also on the and sometimes the conference part is massive. I mean, and sometimes it's even more expensive, actually way more expensive, to participate in the conference program than it is to actually just enter the expo floor. And that's obviously because there's much more value in entering the conference for a reason, because that's where, so you can say, the magic happens. That's where new ideas are created. That's where industry stakeholders are gathering. So obviously that's a much more valuable place than you can say, the basic expo floor. So obviously
one of the ways that I see it in the conference section or in the educational portion is it's distilled from the massive conference. And one of the things sometimes you see from these big conferences, they talk about how many thousands of attendees are going to be there. And the key is, of course, who is it exactly that you're trying to meet, and how would you like to meet them? Most companies don't want to meet somebody as they're rushing past your stand, and especially if you're new or newish or just not that entrenched in the market. I mean, if you're not Coca-Cola, but even if you are, but even if you're not this massive brand that everyone knows and you're trying to get into the market, meeting people on a smaller, more focused way, and the people who, like you said, have chosen to be at this particular presentation. One, if it's your presentation, which is terrific, because now they've self-selected and they've said, well, we're actually in the group of people who want to hear from you. And then, very importantly, of course, Elia brings this up as well, is, I mean, if you're doing this virtually, your presentation has to be interesting to watch, but your presentation must also be interesting to listen to. You need to have engaging content. One of the ways to make sure that your content is engaging is to have attended other similar things in the past. But as a member of an industry association, you also have the opportunity to attend other people's continuing education. But these people then have selected to be in this session with you, whether it's yours or somebody else's, and you bring plenty of business cards. People keep telling me that business cards are dead and I should just have a QR code on my phone.
Yeah, no,
I
that's
hate
not
to
happening.
say this. I hate to say this, but there's so many benefits to having a business cards, and you can just hand them out. It's an inexpensive way of creating a reminder when people come home and empty out their briefcase or their pockets, whatever it might be.
Yeah, absolutely.
That they spoke to you.
Yeah.
But talk to the person sitting next to you. If you're in the audience, raise your hand, ask a question, say, well, explain a little bit more why you're doing things this way, as opposed to doing it so closer to what we're doing. And you may end up engaged in a conversation with the people in the panel, like, well, that's really interesting, but we don't really do that in this region so much. What's your experience doing this? Well, as it happens, I'm from a different country, I'm from a different company, we have this other technology, and we're curious because we're obviously interested in figuring out how this fits into the marketplace. Again, not so much a sales approach, not saying like, well, we'd like to sell you our products, but just bring your curiosity and your business cards, and you'll do well in these sessions.
Absolutely. And also another thing from the conference point of view, basically every conference under the sun these days is taking full advantage of a virtual matchmaking upfront. Again, the preparation part is so crucial for a successful trade show. And it's expensive enough to travel to the United States and participate in trade shows. You really need to do your homework, and if you want to have more guidance on how to do that, I'm sure that both Thomas and myself are happy to help you. But actually, all the trade shows offer this matchmaking, not just with the people in the expo, but also the participants of the conference. You can actually make your profile, and a lot of people do so, and you actually can search who is actually attending, not just exhibiting, but also just attending. And you can actually reach out and say, should we have a cup of coffee at the trade show while we're both there? Because I can see that you're doing exciting things, and I would like to know more about your field of expertise, because we're working in similar industry and we seem to have a similar interest, and so on and so forth. So actually really do yourself the favor of taking full advantage of all the opportunities that a conference is offering. Go to the breakout session, the technical session, go to the side events, connect with people, and engage upfront to actually schedule meetings while you are there, because time flies, and then suddenly the conference is over, and there are so many people you could have met and could have been really crucial for your business to meet and discuss your technology with. And that is exactly what we like to do as Europeans, as Danes. We would like to exchange ideas and not doing the hardcore sales. So it's really your absolute comfort zone. So yeah, so prepare for that.
Yeah, and this sort of brings back one of the things that we've spoken about on several occasions before, where it's kind of like a journey, and it's, you know, going to a conference or entering the US market is much like planning your vacation. I mean, you have to figure out where you're going to go, but you really want to prepare. I mean, if you're going to go in winter, you're going to bring winter clothes. I mean, these are sort of, I feel silly saying this, but we've seen this, and we've talked about this too many times, where we've seen companies who've gone to trade shows and who've engaged and who haven't taken advantage of a lot of the things that are available. And you know, I always tell people, prepare like heck. And as soon as you've made the decision and made the commitment to participate at a conference, to join a trade organization, figure out all the ways in which you can be involved. One of the interesting ways to get started with a trade organization is you just visit a trade show. You find out who is, you know, what's going on. Then you learn about the side events, the educational portion of it. You meet people, engage with the trade organization. But you really got to take advantage of all of the different aspects. And when you're going on a trip, I mean, you don't want to miss out. You don't want to say like, well, we want to go see the Getty Museum, but then don't find out what time they're open, or how to get there, or where it's located, or what are the interesting exhibits that are going on there. So it's thinking about things in that way, where you really want to prepare. But the other part of this is another thing that we've talked about on several occasions, is follow-up is just massively important.
Yeah.
Where people return from trade shows, from events, from conferences, from these educational sessions where they have a bunch of business cards, you know, follow up immediately. So plan in advance that you're going to be spending a lot of time preparing, and plan well before the conference that when you return, yes, you're going to have 1,000 emails in your inbox, but those emails are important, as you know, but they're not more important than following up, because the time and effort and money that's been spent engaging with the market is really only comes into its own when you follow up. You've made good notes, and you know, this person that you've met at an educational session where they had an interesting question that you said, well, I don't have the answer for that on hand, but let me contact my colleague and I'll get back to you. Definitely get back to them, because if someone had enough interest in you and your approach to things, whether it's a specific product or solution, to ask you a question, make sure that you follow up. And it's often where things start. And I'll say, you know, you were asking about in the water sector. So this fall, there's going to be the International Water Association conference is going to be in Copenhagen. One of the things that that we're doing now is having these technical challenges. So operations crews can participate in a challenge, and there's a competition. So it's really about engaging a different group of people, but a group of people who see things at an operational level, to engage and to see how people are doing this, how other operations teams are doing this in a different part of the world, in a different context. And then you may be talking to the engineers, maybe talking to management, maybe talking to procurement, but now you've got the operations people saying, hey, listen, these people that we were competing against, they've got some serious skill, and they've got some tools that we don't have, and they're looking at things in a different way. Why don't we do that? And can we learn something about that?
Exactly, and that is a really good point, because that is yet another, you can say, avenue of the engagement. The industry and trade associations is actually sort of the industry challenges and the operational challenges that is going on, and sometimes you really only get, or you not only, but always only get a say in these challenges if you're engaging in the industry association. You become part of the committee for operation challenges, or you become part of the committee of so and so. So make sure also to check a conference schedule, because typically the expo and the conference has 2 different dates. You know, typically the conference part is actually starting like 1 or 2 days ahead of the expo. And
Exactly.
It's so super annoying to arrive at when the expo is opening, to figure out that all the good stuff took place 2 days ago, and that was actually where all the industry engagement were happening. So really make sure, and for some odd reason, almost always the conference dates, which are the longer dates, usually are with smaller fonts, and then the big font is when the expo is opening. So make sure to actually really understand when is the conference part of this expo, when is that open. So really make sure to be present there, because that's where you actually can, again, raise your hand and say, we would love to have a seat at the table for the International Collaboration Committee, or whatever committee may be feasible for your particular industry. But that is really where you have a real say in also changing the local regulation or the federal regulation, even for the United States, and actually make sure that you are presenting a solution to a challenge that didn't have any solution before. You know, so currently I'm working with a company where for their particular industry, some chemicals are used for disinfection, which is now actually being prohibited, but they don't have a real good solution to actually do the disinfection. So the Danish company is rolling in with the technology that can actually make this particular disinfection. So a match made in heaven. So sometimes you really need to have a say at that table, and that's really where you can help also push the regulation that goes in your particular way. So that's a good way of doing things.
You have the opportunity of influencing the conversation,
exactly,
and which will lead to this kind of opportunity where you see like, well, the industry is moving in a particular direction, and you might have the opportunity to sort of push it in that direction, because that's exactly the direction that you think that the industry should go in, or you might have the opportunity to change it to go in a different direction, which is where you want it to go. But getting to getting a seat at the table is all about participating in where the serious conversations take place. And when you're on the trade show floor, it's more about sales. It's like, well, can you solve this specific problem? Whereas one of the things that also going back to some of the companies that we work with in the water industry, we were meeting with a utility company, and they said, well, we have this specific problem that we want solved. Can you solve that problem? They're like, well, yes, we can solve that problem, but really we think that you should change your whole process at a much earlier stage so that you won't have as big of an end problem. And then that end problem is easier to solve if you make different choices toward the beginning of your process. And it, you know, whether that had actually occurred to them or not, it was more like they were able to have this conversation where they're saying like, well, listen, we think about the process in a different way. So we end up with an easier problem to solve.
And I think that is, and when we're also about to reach the time is up, but I think that is a super good note to finish off on, because what we do in Denmark, we have we're from the get-go, from a very early childhood, we're raised with a holistic approach. And in the United States, very often things are viewed very silo. And for Danish technologies, we hear again and again that Danes are punching above their weight. And that is exactly what we do. We're viewing things holistically to say, if we're solving this problem over here, we have a much lesser problem over here. And that is really sometimes really a aha moment for our American counterparts. And that is really the place to display our holistic approach. It's really on the educational floor, whether that is lunch and learn, whether that is conference sessions, whether that is other industry expert, but really stand out as an expert because of the holistical ways that we're viewing things and our approach to problem solving in that way of thinking. And I think that is uniquely Danish compared to United States, at least.
Most definitely.
Yeah, cool. Thomas, it has been 40 great minutes. I hope that our audience have enjoyed the conversation. I certainly have. I'm super passionate about trade shows and educational sales in general, and it's also super important for Danish businesses because we are more often than not new technologies and presenting novel technologies on the US market. So it is crucial, necessary for us to take part in the educational process. So yeah.
It's just really important to engage in longer discussions than are typically possible sort of at the edge of a trade booth. And you know, and again, I mean, if you're not that big brand that's a known player in a particular industry, you're less likely to be able to attract someone to stay and have a deep conversation with you in your booth, because, well, they need to move on to somebody else. So this is a really important part of engaging with the key players in your market space.
Absolutely. But Thomas, we will send out the recording, and people know where they can find us. So that will also be displayed at the end of the recording of this video. And I hope that people will reach out if they have questions afterwards. And otherwise, I'll just thank you for your participation. It has been a pleasure as always. And you may have a wonderful day in sunny California.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening in less sunny Denmark.
Okay, take care. Thank you.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.